Thanks for the introduction, Sarah. Can you hear me okay? Am I good? Am I okay? Perfect. So I'm excited to be here with you guys. For those of you who came to the animal section, you guys already got to hear me talk today a little bit about cover crops, but I'm changing gears a little bit. Like Sarah mentioned, I'm going to be focusing more on a program that's available, especially for small farms, specifically relating to water quality. And actually, you'll see there's a couple people on this call with me, Paul Burnett and Jim Bocut, and they both have helped us a ton with this and been a part of this. So it's great to have us all together on this call and whatnot. So with that, kind of wanted to start out by describing the issue, why this project or this program became a thing. So when we look at agriculture, a lot of times in agriculture, we have large facilities that have large waste management issues or just large waste management quantities, right? They have to find ways to be able to expel their waste without creating water quality problems. And that can be a huge issue. It can cause huge problems. Now, when we're looking at this, a lot of times we have government agencies that come in and help with this because our food is important and we need to make sure that we can raise it. And so it's important that we have an avenue that these farms can get help. And so a lot of times it's basically these large farms can find funding to do large projects in order to improve their water quality. And so our large farms are getting taken care of. They're doing well, and there's assistance there. However, a lot of times when we're thinking about where are our water quality issues coming from, we forget about the small farmer producer that may be grazing their cattle, in a river, and they only have one, two, five cows, but those cows are contributing to our water quality issues. I think one of my colleagues liked to tell a story where, we're worried about all these cows and we're piping and doing these things on these large operations. However, he went out to hunt, and while he's on the hunt, there's a cow right there, just basically um, in a river causing water quality issues. And so, again, there really is not a huge avenue for these small producers, though. Water quality improvements on a farm can be expensive and they can add up quickly. And with a smaller farm, a lot of times you don't have larger margins. So it's really hard to make ends meet to provide water quality improvements on your farm. And so, with that background and just a little bit more information, so just to keep you in mind, this is from 2020, so the statistic's a little old, but livestock and poultry produce almost 13 more waste than the entire US population. That's a crazy stat to think about. That's a lot of waste management that we're dealing with. Because of this, the EPA has created laws and regulations for managing manure, and it's important that they're followed. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of times on our big agriculture operations, we're really working hard to make these followed, but on our small ones, we're missing. And that's kind of what this last bullet point shows. With the Division of Water Quality, they noted that most issues were coming from smaller farms and ranches and not necessarily the larger scale producers. Okay. So this is something to think about, and this is kind of the problem that we're coming up with. And so working with the Utah Department of Environmental Quality, us at USU Extension, kind of came together. Basically, us at USU Extension applied for funding from the Division of Water Quality. And I'm sorry, I realize I don't have the Division of Water Quality, I have environmental quality, but overall, working with those guys and being able to apply for that funding, we're able to get funding to create this program that's basically the Small Farm Water Quality Improvement Project. And so, one thing you should know about this program is we have actually received funding for this program for the past 4 years. I think it might actually be 5 years up to this point. This last year in 2025, we received $85,000 in grant funding, which allows us to be able to help provide producers an application process where they can apply to improve water quality on their farm. Now, before I go any farther, one of the biggest things I always have to tell people, this is for water quality, not water conservation. So it's got to be related to improving the water quality. Water conservation falls under some of the other programs that the Utah Department of Ag and Food can offer. This one specifically is for waste management and improving our water quality overall. So what is our program? Let's describe what the process is. So first of all, It's a producer grant application. So producers, there's a grant application available. You go and fill out the application. The application looks for things like it wants you to talk about the need for water quality improvement. What's your need? Where are you located? What things are you planning on doing? They also want you to fill out a budget. What is this going to cost you? Um, One of the big components of this is that there is a required 20% match for the grant application. Now, that 20% match, it can come in cash. It can also come in in-kind materials or labor. So in the past, we've had people who have built their own fences or even use their own materials to provide for the grant. It's just important that that 20% match is hit. And so with each grant application, producers can request up to a maximum of $10,000, and that's per project or application. Now, one thing I will say, and one of the most important parts of our grant application that I don't have on here is thinking about evaluation methods to evaluate how your water quality improved. Now, I will tell you that can be a hard thing, but taking pictures before and after can be a huge evaluation tool in and of itself. We can also do water quality testing. We can do tests before and after. We can look at many different options to be able to accomplish that. Now, the last thing I should say, a lot of people think you apply for the grant and you just get the funding immediately. Due to university standards with Utah State, we cannot provide the funding that way. What we have to do is the project actually has to be all the way completed and receipts have to be submitted. And basically, the grant funding comes as a reimbursement. So that is something important to consider when you're thinking about applying for this grant is that it basically will come at the end of your project is when the funding will come in. So just something to think about there. So potential projects that you can look at, and I had AI help me with this image here, but a lot of what we do, we look at fencing. Fencing's a huge one, especially if we're trying to keep livestock out of our major waterways. A lot of our projects have been oriented around the Great Salt Lake, even Utah Lake has been a huge focus on water quality. And so our projects have been kind of focused in those areas to keep the waterways up a little bit farther cleaner. Now, we also can provide funding for projects like using berms to redirect water, rerouting of natural springs if there are some riparian areas or different things going on there. Natural vegetation plantings, especially if we've seen eroded riparian areas, can be a great one. There are many things that can qualify. And the most important thing is when you're creating a project, just illustrating this for us and telling us why your project is going to improve water quality. So that is a huge part of this grant application and an important part in and of itself. And so with that, kind of looking forward, results and outcomes, our goals are mitigate animal waste, improve overall water quality, limit overall access of livestock to waterways, divert potential contaminated runoff from tributaries, and redirect spring outputs to allow more practical water drinking access for livestock. And so here are some projects, and I'm going to have to go through these kind of quick. My time kind of came up quicker than I was thinking. But one of the things you can see here, this is actually taken up, I think this project was specifically in Box Elder County. But basically, they had built livestock pens right on a natural river flow. And it was part of their property. It was something they could do. I think it was a spring that ran straight into a water flow is what it was. And so they had built these pens. I mean, they had been built years ago. And one of the cool things is we do encourage 4-H and FFA youth who are doing livestock to apply for these grants as well. And this project was oriented around that. And so as you can see here, the water's just right here and they have these pens set up. And so what they did is they designed a plan so that they could be able to improve this. And what they did is they actually were able to create separate pens off of the spring. And you can see how much of an improvement just that fencing even has made visually. You can see how they're on. What they had to do is create a pump system so that their livestock could receive water and basically make it so that they're not going in that waterway at all. And so that's huge, something to think about. Now, this is a before picture of the Malad River up in northern Utah as well. When we first started out this grant project, it started in northern Utah and then spread across the state to the whole state of Utah. So I have a little more in northern Utah. But hammered Malad River riparian area, you can see here how much it's been hammered from livestock and other animals. Was their direct access to water. And so what they did with their project, as you can see here, they put in fencing that allowed them to basically control where their livestock were getting in to the river. And so it basically made it so the riparian area could recover. And that's been a huge benefit too. This
And
one is
Jake,
going to be very,
we're
oh,
out of
sorry.
time. I'm sorry. We're out of time now.
Oh, okay, perfect.
But if
I
you
will
want to just
stop there.
cruise through and show us your before and afters.
What was that, Sarah? I couldn't hear you.
If you want to just wrap up with one last minute, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So all I was going to say is this is our website. Go to our website. This is where we have applications open right now. This is the place to go. So anyway, I apologize for going a little long-winded on that.
No way. That was awesome. And so that was a lot to cover, and we're grateful for the insights on projects that folks could take on.